Hey you guys, welcome back once again to Flickers of Fear. I think on my last movie review, which was The Coffee Table, I think at the end I actually called it the show Tomes of Terror instead. I have a tendency to do that. I don't know why I call the movie review shit like Tomes of Terror. That's the book review shit, but whatever, it doesn't really matter. It's just something that I got kind of like anal retentive about. So I've been watching a lot of newer movies recently, as you might have surmised. So this movie here is called Baghead, and this is a 2023 English-German co-production. You don't confuse it with, because there was another movie called Baghead that came out in 2008 that was a horror comedy that was directed by the Duplass brothers, which I haven't seen, I don't think. But yeah, this is a completely different movie. So this movie Baghead dropped on Shudder, I think on April of 2024. So, like most of the newer movies I cover on here, there's a little bit of buzz about it. I saw some other channels covering it, so I said, okay, well, it sounds kind of cool, so I'm going to, give it a watch, I guess. So I'm going to say right out of the gate, this was like a decent, like middling kind of watch. Like, it's nothing earth-shattering or anything like that, but it's an involving enough story. It had some good acting performances in it and had like an interesting premise, you know what I mean? Slightly original. Although, having said that, comparisons to the 2022 horror film Talk to Me are probably inevitable. Baghead isn't exactly the same as that. There's like a lot of differences, but the concept is similar enough that I feel like most people will probably notice the resemblance. But, Baghead does have its own thing going on, though. So, don't let the vague parallels between the stories, like, put you off if you're actually interested in seeing this one. Now, as usual in my film discussions, I won't be spoiling the whole movie, like the ending and stuff like that, but I may be talking about some plot points that you might not want to know ahead of time. So, watcher beware from this point forward. So, in the, like, cold open of the movie, we have this older man who's played by Peter Mullen. He's been in a million things, but I mean, I always remember him from Session 9 from 2001, which is an excellent movie. So his character's name is Owen Lark, and he's turning away a young man whose name you don't find out till later, but it's Neil, so that's what I'm going to tell you what it is. So he's turning him away from this establishment that he's in. Now, Neil is very obviously distraught, and he keeps begging Owen to something like, let me see my wife. But Owen refuses him for reasons we won't find out until later on. So then we see Owen making a videotape for someone. And in this videotape, he says kind of at the beginning, the very common movie trope of, if you're watching this, I'm already dead. So what he's explaining is that I'm going to try and end this, but if I can't, then, I failed you and I'm sorry, and now the whole thing is your problem, and I apologize, you know what I mean? Now, Owen then tries to burn down the pub, starting in the basement, where it's revealed that he's keeping someone or something. You don't really get a good look at it. Long story short, Owen ends up burning to death, like basically collapsing in the hallway of his own pub and, burning up and dying. So then we cut to a young woman named Iris. And she's in the process of breaking back into the apartment that she was just evicted from in order to get all of her stuff. So with this kind of brief introduction, this is the way she's, presented to us initially. We already know that Iris is obviously having some money problems, and that this might not be the first time that she's had to deal with this kind of shit, like being evicted and having to get back in and get her shit and all of that kind of stuff. Now, she has a best friend named Cady, and she's kind of come along to help her, even though she's, it's illegal, so she's kind of a little bit nervous about it. And really, from their interaction, it's pretty efficiently conveyed that Cady maybe has a long history of bailing Iris out of financial scrapes. It's not so much that Iris is like a bum or a fuck up or anything like that, or lazy. It just seems like she has had a lot of bad luck and has also had like a lot of family trauma in her life up to this point. So as the two of them are fleeing the scene before they get caught, Iris gets an unexpected phone call. Now the caller informs her that her father has died. Now this actually comes as a surprise to her best friend Cady, who thought that Iris's dad was dead already. So you're led to presume that Iris had told her father was dead. Now it turns out, you find out later, that Iris's dad took off and left her and her mother, Catherine, who also subsequently died, And Iris and her dad became estranged, like they didn't speak for a really long time. So she later tells Cady's like, look, I haven't seen him for years. I didn't even know where he lived. So this is pretty much as shocking to me. So I just told everyone he was dead because I don't talk to him anymore. So as you might have guessed, Iris's dad was Owen, the guy that owned the pub. And Iris has inherited said pub, which is called the Queen's Head. She goes to see the solicitor, like in charge of her dad's estate. Now, this guy, naturally, assumes that Iris will probably want to sell this to, because it's a massive place, you know what I mean? But it's not that bad, but it's a little bit, like, decrepit, you know what I mean? He's like, well, I'm presuming that you want to sell it to, like, clear your father's debts, and, you know, you're 20 or something like that. You don't want to run this big, giant pub, which I'm sure is, like, a money pit. Now, Iris takes a look at this kind of gigantic building, this big pile, and because she's essentially homeless, she just got evicted, remember, she asked, well, can I crash here for tonight, like, while I figure out what I'm going to do? Because she actually had to fly to get there, so I didn't know if the pub was supposed to be in Germany, because everything was in English, so I'm not sure if they shot it in Germany, actually. But yeah, so she's like, well, can I crash here? I don't know what I'm going to do yet. So the guy was kind of, like, taken aback by it. He's like, well, you know, it's your place, so, hey, knock yourself out. So later on that night, Iris notices this weird locked door, like at the end of this corridor, that has a bunch of what looks like runes carved on it, like all the way down. It's kind of cool looking, actually. And then later on the same night, she's awakened by the appearance of this young man, and it's the same guy that came into the place at the beginning and was asking Owen, like, if he could see his wife or whatever. So this guy has apparently heard that the old owner died and is now back to kind of make his strange request to the new owner, who will maybe be more amenable to his request. Now, Iris, she's in this huge place by herself in a city she's presumably never been to, so she's understandably terrified of this dude who just kind of showed up in the middle of the night, but he insists that he's no danger to her. And then he offers her the quite substantial sum of £2,000 to go down to the basement to see his wife. Now, clearly, she has absolutely no fucking idea what the hell it is that he's talking about, but he seems very sincere, very emotionally distraught, and when she kind of hesitates about it, he even doubles the amount. He's like, here's 2,000 more pounds, I've got more, you know, money's no object, all this other kind of stuff. So she's like, okay, bro, whatever, and she kind of finally agrees to whatever it is that he wants, which she's not entirely clear on. But she's like, well, look, I just got here. I don't have the keys to the basement door yet, so you're going to have to come back tomorrow night after I go back to the solicitors. Now, in the meantime, Cady, her best friend, is kind of worried about her, and she's flown out to, again, wherever this pub is, to kind of give Iris moral support. Now, before she gets there, Iris, like I said, goes back to the solicitor's office and tells him that she's decided to take over the pub herself. She's going to stay there. So he's like, are you sure? And she's like, yeah, that's what I want to do. So he pulls out all this paperwork, and she gets asked to sign this real ancient-looking piece of parchment with a pen that has the same runes that are on the basement door. It's like carved into the pen, which, that seems like a little bit of a red flag right there. But she doesn't really, seem too worried about it. And, voila, the place is now hers. Now, her friend Cady, probably rightly so, thinks she's completely crazy for taking this place on. And also, because she tells, Iris tells Cady, like, what's going on with this Neil guy that comes up and, like, came in and offered all this money. Just like, I'm really questioning the wisdom of you taking money from this Neil guy who's probably a nut. Like, you don't even know what he's talking about. And he could be a serial killer for all you know. Now, Iris kind of gets a little bit, I don't want to say butthurt, but she does kind of justify her decision by saying, look, I've been poor, I've struggled my whole entire life, and this guy is offering me money for something which, seems like it's no big thing, and it's like, maybe now I have an opportunity to, like, make something for myself, like a different life. Maybe now I can have this place, I can set up an art studio like I always wanted, I can make some money for once in my life. I mean, she's like, well, what do I really have to lose after all, right? Because she was homeless back wherever she came from. So Neil comes back that night, and Iris and Kate both accompany him down to the basement, which is enormous and has like this big, like ragged hole, like in the brick, like toward the back of the room. Now, there's also like this odd kind of throne looking chair, like in the middle of the room with straps on the arms. And then there's like a regular chair sitting across from it. Now, Neil, who you're kind of led to believe has never been here before or never done this before, but he seems to kind of know what to do. So he goes down to the basement and starts calling out to someone. Now, at first, nothing happens, and Iris and Kate are kind of like giving each other significant glances, like, what the fuck is this dude's deal? You know what I mean? But then, to their utter shock and horror, a woman with a burlap sack over her head kind of comes shuffling out of the hole. Now, this woman, obviously, is Baghead. And she has a very special power. If you give her something belonging to a dead loved one, she will basically, like, ingest the object temporarily, and then actually summon them and transform into them, like, so you can talk to them. Now, there are some rules and best practices, though, which Iris finds out after she watches the videotape that her dad left for her, which was in her solicitor's office. So here's the rules. 1, it's really only wise to speak with your dear departed, or at least them channeled through this Baghead woman, for like 2 minutes. Because after that, Baghead starts taking back over and starts getting real cranky and a little bit evil. Rule 2. Whoever's name is on the deed of the pub is the only person who can tell Baghead what to do, but only up to a point. Like, again, there's like a little bit of a caveat. The longer she's doing the stuff, like, the less she'll listen to what you have to say. Rule 3. No one should ever go into the hole in the wall where Baghead comes from. Rule 4. The more often people use Baghead's powers, the stronger she gets. And Rule 5, Baghead must never, ever be allowed to leave the basement. Now, as you might imagine, pretty much all of these rules get bent or broken along the way, because Iris kind of gets tempted by Neil's offers of money for access to Baghead and starts becoming more and more intertwined with Baghead's power to speak with the dead, because Iris also has dead loved ones that she would like to speak to. So as I mentioned, this was a pretty solid watch. It's not great, but it's not bad either. The interiors of the pub are really nice and creepy. The monster kind of had an interesting look and an interesting backstory. She's essentially like a witch, kind of. And the end actually went in a direction that I admit I didn't really expect, which is good. The acting was good pretty much across the board. Peter Mullen playing Owen, I mean, he's always great, and Freya Allen, who plays Iris, they were both excellent. I thought a few of the minor roles were a little overwrought, like the guy that played Neil was a little bit over the top, I thought, but, you know, no biggie. Also, I didn't love, there was kind of a clunky expositional sequence where one character, like a minor character, gave the history of Baghead with it, and it kind of seemed like a History Channel documentary, like the way it was edited, you know what I mean? And I kind of feel like there probably was a little bit more elegant way to do that, but like I said, it's not a huge criticism. So if you really liked Talk to Me and you want to see something kind of along those lines, then this, this might fit the bill. It's quite a serious film. There's no humor in it really, which didn't bother me at all, but might not appeal to some people. I don't know your life. The CGI was also a little bit like in places. But this is an independent, low-budget movie, and they were fine in that context. They didn't stand out too much, so I couldn't be too mad about it. So yeah, this movie is streaming on Shudder, at least as of this recording, which is May of 2024. So if it sounds interesting, then please check it out and tell me what you thought about it in the comments. And that will do it for this Flickers of Fear. Thank you very much for watching. Remember, like, share, subscribe, and comment, and all of that other good stuff. And I'll see you guys again on the next one. Bye.